I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, this is Christina Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barn. Today we're going to talk about Donald Trump, of course, winning Time Magazine's Man of the Year, which I think I knew that. And we talked about that a little bit yesterday, that we knew that was coming, but Trump went ahead to the New York Stock Exchange where they rang the bell and stuff. And, when they officially kind of, announced it and thanked them for it and stuff. And so I think it's pretty obvious that he should take that that win with that. And, there were some other interesting contenders, but obviously Donald Trump, winning a second term, a non-consecutive term after all the turmoil that he went through was pretty darn historic and very interesting. It's an incredible comeback. So we'll be talking about that. There was a Swiftie from Europe who was so upset, like, how could we go from Taylor Swift to Donald Trump and you Americans? And it was just silly nonsense that I guess I'll address or whatever. But I also want to talk about this Pete Hegseth story from ProPublica that they tried to publish. And I know we talked about it yesterday, but there's been a new development because the journalists tried to say, well, we when we found out the truth that, that he actually had gone to West Point, and he didn't lie, and that was a mistake from West Point. We found out the facts, and that's why we didn't publish a story and try to make it seem like it was all above board. Well, Daily Caller received some of the emails, I guess, from Pete's team or whatever, from the journalists from ProPublica, and they're basically like, why did you lie? We have this information from West Point and you have 1 hour to respond. And so if their deadline is 1 hour, that means they already have the story written up, already had the hit job written up to come out against Pete Hegseth. And the only evidence that they had, granted, it's from West Point, but they were ready to smear this nominee, and it's pretty darn ridiculous. So I talked a little bit about the press yesterday and some of the shady stuff that they do when they try to run stories, but in the defense that ProPublica tried to use for itself, they didn't mention how they tried to do this shady "you have 1 hour to respond" nonsense. So it's just a shame what the media does, and we'll be talking about that. Joe Biden gave a lot of clemency to a bunch of different folks. We're still kind of running through and checking that out. It's kind of fresh news, but all kinds of stuff going on today. But before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate, because it does cost a stream. We run my website, all that stuff you guys can't support. I very much do appreciate you guys. So, encourage you guys to support and that way by checking out other content. Thank you to those who are watching live, and to those of you who watch back later. All that does really help. So even if you can't reach in your pocket, do a little something extra, just literally just watching or asking other people to watch also does help. Make sure that you are subscribed and you guys are hitting the notification bells. Sometimes I'm popping up on people's like shorts, and they're like, where have you been? I haven't seen you in ages. It's good to finally see you. I'm like, I've been here. Please make sure that you're still subscribed, because sometimes these social media platforms unsubscribe people, and I don't know why they don't show people content of people that they clearly chose to follow. Make sure you're hitting the notification bells, but I know sometimes they still don't send the notification bells. So just another reminder, unless something happens, unless I have some kind of other obligation, or I'm ill, or going on vacation or something, I usually am streaming Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. I start relatively on time. Sometimes it may be a couple minutes late or whatever, but if I'm really late, I like to announce it on YouTube. I'll do a post, or Facebook, I'll do a post. But normally that's when I post things. So if you're not seeing my stuff pop up, that's because YouTube is not showing it to you, or Facebook is not showing it to you and letting you know. But I'm here still chugging along. So you guys can also check out different merch on the site as well. Go ahead, check out different stuff there, and you guys can also check out my books that I've written. I have many, but some of my posters are behind me. But I have historical fiction books like The Color of God's Eyes and The Song of the Devil's Lips. I love that series. We got books like Slay Your Fear, How to Overcome a Spirit of Fear. And my book series, of course, not a series, but of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion as well. You guys can check that out. I have a second edition out. There's a link in the description to my Amazon page that you guys can check out. This is interesting. Kit Kat said YouTube keeps unclicking the bell. That I'll have the bell notifications turned on. Won't see anything. I'll go back to find it unclicked the bell. Weird. I wish I don't have any. I'm not big enough that I have any YouTube reps. I don't know anybody from the inside. So, I don't have anyone to kind of reach out to, complain to, and to try to advocate on my behalf. So we just got to keep trying to figure it out and press through together, guys. That sucks, but I'm not surprised because people say stuff like that. So yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame. It's a shame. So let's go ahead and start off with Donald Trump. Yesterday, I did a little TikTok really quickly when I had heard that Donald Trump got Man of the Year. And there were other interesting contenders. Like I mentioned, Elon Musk was considered, and he's had a interesting year. Of course, he's very political and instrumental, I would say, in the victory with Donald Trump. I mean, he started that big PAC. He was just sending out money for people to register to something that it was like an online thing to support free speech and to support the Second Amendment. And if you got other people to sign up, you would get $47 for each name. And I got a couple checks for that. So and then he was giving away $1 million to people too. And unfortunately, I was not one of the winners, but you shoot your shot. And he was basically living in Pennsylvania, doing different town halls and going to rallies and doing what he could to try to get Donald Trump elected. Now, mind you, this is a man who did not vote for him in 2020, which was an interesting thing to me because there was an interview when he talked about how he didn't vote for Trump in 2020. And he wasn't too fond of Biden and some stuff with Biden in the interview talking about it. He let me know that he didn't vote for Trump. And I just thought it was interesting because I'm like, this man he's the richest man in the world. He's obviously a very intelligent man. And there's enough information, and there certainly was enough information at the time to make a correct decision because he seemed like he had regrets at the time. But a lot of things, you could have made an educated decision and not voted for Biden and voted for Trump, but he voted the way that he voted. Now, obviously, there was a big shift, and he decided to support Trump. Now, he's been targeted by the government. You could say, well, Tesla gets the subsidies and all kinds of stuff. He's still been targeted by the government on dumb stuff. There's a case where his stock, he agreed not to take a salary, but he had to get Tesla shares or stock to a certain point. People are like, sure, let's do that. Let's gamble with your salary because you're that's would be really incredible if you were able to hit all those markers that you say that you have to hit to get paid, and the payout would be like insanely high. And so he was able to do what he promised. And so, okay, they're like, okay, yeah, you're gonna get this money. And the government keeps blocking him getting his money that he earned, that everybody agreed to, that he should get if they hit all the markers. So he's still like appealing him getting the money that's owed to him. um, so that's one of the things that he's been having to deal with the government. He's also been in trouble for not hiring enough not I think refugees and stuff, and they're like, okay, well, we do like security high clearance stuff, and we can't just be hiring people who are not citizens. So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't with him. But they've been coming at Elon for a while, and then he doesn't like all the suppressing of free speech that's going on in the left, and how they clearly want to limit misinformation, even though they spread misinformation all the time. So, that stuff made him uncomfortable. Things like, I mean, he bought X, which was Twitter at the time, after the Babylon Bee got shut down for saying that um, Rachel Levine, who's our assistant health secretary, who is a male who identifies as a woman, and they gave him man of the year, and then TikTok locked them out their account. They didn't just delete the post. They said, you have to delete the post, which is funny because on other social media platforms, if you just they just usually take your stuff down if it's some kind of violation. But with Twitter, it's like you had to participate in a humiliation ritual, and they wanted you to take the time to take it down yourself, as opposed to them just doing it and putting you back on. So the Babylon Bee decided, like, this is a true thing. So if we can't, this means we can never post again on Twitter. We just can't post again. And they took it down, and they didn't get access to their account back, I think, until Elon Musk took control of the company. And so that was a really big moment, a really big shift. But another thing with the gender stuff, he is an enemy of the woke. He's declared himself because he had a child who I think it was a son they told him all this like transgender propaganda stuff, and so they decided to go along and support a transition. And of course, you can't transition into another gender. You are what you are, and the rest is just living out a delusion. And so he feels that he lost a son to the madness, so he considers himself to be an enemy to the woke. So he was very, very crucial to the election outcome. And then also, I mean, there was the successful launch of his rocket, and the reorbiting and being caught on that clamp thing. I mean, just really incredible stuff professionally going on for Elon as well. And if they wanted to give him man of the year, I wouldn't have hated it. He was definitely an interesting contender. Even like Joe Rogan was a contender too, but Elon going on Joe Rogan, he gave a really good argument, at least to Joe, for Trump. And then Rogan ended up, when he posted Elon's interview, he said, like, this is one of the most compelling arguments for Trump. And by the way, that is an endorsement. And that was a few days before the election. And I do think his involvement made a big impact. And I don't know, like, numbers wise, if I had to get, like, if Elon didn't get involved the way that he got involved, would Trump still be elected? Maybe. I mean, it was a change election, and Kamala was just like the worst, right? But and Trump did sweep the swing states. Kamala didn't flip any counties. I don't think she flipped any counties. No, I think she flipped some really, really affluent. No, I don't know if she flipped any. She did better in some counties, but I don't think she flipped any counties. She certainly didn't flip any states. But I don't think she flipped any counties. I think she because the first thing, there was a narrative that she didn't do better than Joe at all, but that's not true. There were some like really affluent areas, like wine country areas and stuff, where she did do better and outperform Joe. But it was just a really poor performance from Kamala Harris on election night, and apparently her people knew that she was running behind the whole entire time. But Elon Musk obviously did play a major role. And so if he had won Man of the Year, I wouldn't have hated it. But obviously it's Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump had an incredible year. Just an incredible comeback. um, you know, so you really can't who it just would have been silly if it was somebody else. So here's an image. Let me show you guys of the 20 this was the 2016 one versus the one that's recent. And I had forgot what the 2016 had looked like. I had shared the 2016 one on TikTok the other day, and that was the old one. And they had the president elect of the United Divided States of America. And I don't feel like we were actually that divided at that time when they made that statement, but of course they wanted us to be extraordinarily divided at the time, and they were doing their darndest. Like when I went to the inauguration, and I've talked about this, and he gave a really great speech at the inauguration, but they painted it as, oh, it was dark, it was divisive. Like, just go listen to the actual speech, or better yet, just go read it. Read the speech, because some people, they have such strong TDS, when if they listen to him talk, they will just see the bias. I think on a TikTok, I actually did just read the speech to people, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, this is a great speech. It's a great speech." And I also did a video where I read his letter about after the Central Park 5, and the wilding out in Central Park and stuff, all with the 30 kids and so on. And Trump came out um later with a letter. Actually, it was relatively soon to the attacks and stuff, and it was talking about law and order and how people need to respect authority, and if people don't respect authority, that's how you get lawlessness in the streets. And everybody, you know across economic status and socioeconomic status is what I was trying to say, are all basically held prisoner by these people who don't respect the law, and people need to go back to fearing authority. And so that was the point of his ad. And I just read the ad, and I gave some context to what happened and why he felt the way that he felt, and some more facts about the cases and stuff. And a lot of people are like, "Oh my gosh, I actually agree a lot with this letter. I agree with what he said." And he didn't say to call, for their execution in there and all kinds of different stuff. So some people just have extreme TDS, and when they hear him, when they see him, they're automatically going to go negative because they're just so sick of him. And human beings, when they get to a point where they just really, really don't like someone, and maybe there's valid reasons why they get to the point where they don't like somebody, or maybe most things are concocted in their mind why they don't like somebody. But once they reach a certain point, it's like everything they do is like instant annoyance, instant triggered. And that's how some people are with Donald Trump. So if there's something that people are saying that Trump said or whatever, sometimes you have to go and just read a full transcript, even um, not even just watch it, so you can try to get past your bias to know the truth. But the second picture here, of course, is the new photo for the person of the year. And he still looks when a lot of people talk about how people go through the presidency and then they look all super old afterwards. Like, Trump is not a young man, even in that first photo. And he still looks pretty good for his age, and for the apparent lack of sleep that he gets. That's pretty insane. I heard him say once he only sleeps like 4 hours. I don't understand that. Because if I don't get more than 4 hours or something like that, I feel like I'm ill. Like, like I could obviously do that when I was in my 20s or something like that. But I don't know how he lives. Like, it's just fascinating. He needs to be studied. It's like uh the first Hokage, how they took his cells in Naruto. And if you're an anime fan or whatever, but it just kind of needs to be studied, I think. But they didn't have any kind of dunking narrative or whatever like in the 2016. They just said, Donald Trump, and that's that. So, um, good, good. Just to run through all the things that he had to endure. Um, well, there was coming off of 2020, and I didn't feel that he handled his disputes about the outcome of the election entirely well. I definitely would have handled them differently, which of course ultimately ended up leading to January 6th, which I thought was a bad idea. All those people gathered and stuff. I'm like, that sounds like it's a plot. Like, that sounds like a not good idea where, bad stuff could happen. I would just be like, and of course, a riot ensued. And you would have thought that at that point in time, it would have been basically all over. And he still persisted, man. And people still stuck by him. People still wanted him. And there was all these court cases that ended up coming against him. And it wasn't just that they came against him. They came against him like all at once. January 6th happened, of course, in 2021, January 2021. And the court cases and the appeals or whatever for the election, that stuff was happening, 2020, late 2020, and then early 2021. And all these cases were just boom, 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 supposed to happen one after another. Jack Smith was trying so hard to be able to get that case done, but before the election. The Fonnie Willis case, I've mentioned this before many times before, but that case just exploded in a hilarious kind of way. But that case would have basically been going on like October, I think. I think it might have been October, and they planned to televise it. So there would have been all this stuff, not and stuff that I don't know if they would have been able to prove with, that he actually did things criminally to a point where a jury would convict him on. But to hear some of different behaviors and different testimonies and stuff that they would have trotted out, that kind of stuff would have been really damaging for the election, for Trump. So all these things I think were orchestrated, how quick they happened, especially right before the election. And of course, the Alvin Bragg case, which everyone, as there was the different cases that were coming out, it was like universally accepted that the Alvin Bragg one was the stupidest one that was obviously going after for Trump. Just, I don't know, so Alvin Bragg could feel included or whatever, just to have an extra thing to throw them. And of course, that's the only thing that, as far as criminal stuff, that got pushed forward, that went all the way through completion, and he got convicted. Now people keep saying he's a convicted felon, but he's not actually a convicted felon. He was convicted of the felonies, but you actually have to be sentenced before you're considered to be a felon, because something could happen still later. The judge could throw it out or whatever. He's like the 13th juror. And you just aren't officially a felon until you are actually sentenced. So all these people say Donald Trump is a felon, Donald Trump is a felon, Donald Trump is a felon. He actually technically was not a felon. And I'm sure Kamala Harris actually probably knew that, but didn't care because it sounded good, right? They really, really wanted this talking point of him being a felon. And I was kind of offended every time someone brought that up, because I'm like, I know the case is stupid. I know the case is stupid. Like, if he had done something really serious, like he would say like that line in 2016, like, I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, my supporters would still support me or something. Of course that's a joke. Hopefully it's a joke. And if he did something like that, was criminally convicted, I would hope people wouldn't stand by that, right? I would hope people wouldn't stand by that. But that's not anything like the 34 counts of the falsified business records, where the 34 counts are just basically each check that's written and logged to pay back his lawyer who paid off, Stormy Daniels. And this is a misdemeanor that they tried to ghetto rig to be a felony, because even if it was a misdemeanor, the statute of limitations had passed that. So they needed to connect it to some other kind of crime. And so we're not even sure exactly what that is. We think it's campaign finance violations, but he didn't break any campaign finance laws. So it's just a muddled mess of injustice. So the more that they pushed that he was a criminal, people are like, no, you guys are corrupt, and we will back the man who's the alleged felon over your corrupt system. The more they tried to take out this man, the more people felt like they had to fight on his behalf. They made people like so attached to, people were open to someone else being the president prior to all of these indictments coming down. They're the ones who created this surge of Donald Trump, this fan base that will hold on. They're the ones. If they had just left this man alone, if Jack Smith and whoever had just left him alone, if they didn't raid Mar-a-Lago, he'd just probably be posted on True Social, or supporting somebody here, supporting somebody that, trying to sell Trump shoes, and which he still does all this stuff anyway. But, I had heard that he wasn't going to actually run until they decided to, raid his stuff. And then he was like, okay, let's do this. Let's do this. I don't know if he'll admit that in public or whatever, but that's what I had heard. They could have just left the man alone. Or if they had left him alone, it's possible that, and if there weren't so many Republicans who were running against him, let's say if it was just one-on-one, him and Ron, maybe Ron could have made it. Or if it was early on, maybe him and Nikki, maybe Nikki could have pulled it out somehow. I don't know. But the more they pushed and attacked him, the more people were like, wow, they obviously want me to back down. And that's why they keep, coming against him. But I don't want to look like a punk, and that they punked me out of supporting him. So yeah, I'm going to double down. That's how people felt. So they went for it. And they didn't back down. It was a game of chicken, and our side didn't blink. It was a game of chicken, and our side did not blink. Someone said that he did say that in public not very long ago. He did say in public that in an interview that he wasn't going to run until they raided Mar-a-Lago. I haven't seen that if he said that. I just heard that from pretty good sources. Okay. I'll have to look that up. Thank you, Bailey. So they had these cases that ended up getting stalled or thrown out, delayed, and then the worst one he got convicted over. They tried to bankrupt him. In New York, Miss James. These people ran on trying to get him. They found a way to get him. Usually you're supposed to chase the crime, not chase the person and find a crime. And they just wanted to take his money. They did the civil case with E. Jean Carroll. I don't want to say too many things about her because she out here suing people for a lot of money, but someone who doesn't we'll just say remind everyone that she went on CNN and talked about how she thought rape was sexy, and so that's the person who everybody wants to stake their credibility on and say that they trust this person. And when I push people and they're like, well, he's a convicted rapist, I'm like, he wasn't convicted of that. What are you talking about? Like, no, it was a court case. I'm like, okay, first of all, it was civil, it wasn't criminal. And the court didn't even find that her claims that she had been raped, they didn't back that. So yeah, they decided to go with that he's liable for sexual assault, but that just means that he's liable for like denying that it happened and said some things about her. And this is, and I'm like, what, based off of what evidence, what, if you believe her based off of what evidence? And people don't have an answer because they didn't look that deep in it. They just like the talking point. They just like the talking point of him being all these terrible, terrible things. So I mentioned in the opening that I had did a video talking about Trump winning Person of the Year. A European, he's like, I'm from Europe and we can't understand how you guys went from Taylor Swift to Donald Trump for Person of the Year. First of all, whether you like him or hate him, there's been all kinds of people, including not great people, who have graced the cover of Time magazine. So it's not supposed to be like, this is the moral truth of our world. That's not what the cover or the honor is supposed to be about. Second of all, Taylor Swift, I understand that, and I'm sorry if you're a Swiftie, I understand that she is a well-produced product, and I understand that she is a great entertainer. She's a all right singer. I wouldn't say she's a great singer. And before you're like, oh, could you do better? Yes, I could absolutely sing better than Taylor Swift. Now, I'm not saying she can't sing. There's just a lot of artists who are a lot better than Taylor Swift, but I understand that it's more than that. She's built a fan base for a long time. She's had some really big hits. She's had some really good videos. She's a very well packaged product. She's, from my understanding, a very hard worker. I don't think you could get to where you are without, being extraordinarily hard worker or whatever. But at the end of the day, she's still like just a pop star, right? So if you're so confused that Time magazine jumped from a pop star to a president, and you're upset that they named a president Person of the Year after he won a non-consecutive term, which hasn't happened in a very long time. If you don't think that's a big deal, then just shut up and sit down. I don't know what else to kind of say. Again, a pop star versus a president. And by the way, she didn't like him and didn't want him to win. And I can't say she really went out there really tried to stop him, but she endorsed other person, and Trump came out with this "I hate Taylor Swift" tweet, which I didn't think was great. I think he should have just mostly ignored her. But I have a theory. I don't know. I've said this before, but I don't think she's come out with like any really, really good music since he was president. So I and I mentioned before, I'm like, make Taylor Swift music great again. Like I know she's made more music, but nothing has like been an earworm for me. Like if there's any Swifties out there, maybe you can correct me. I'm sure you will, but like like there was one pretty big album that she did some time ago, but I just don't think she's really come out with a lot of good stuff since the last time he was president. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. Yeah. Of course it was going to be Trump. And on top of all the obstacles that he had with, of course, he was impeached twice while he's president, never for any crimes, not for any real crimes. You can say, well, the insurrection, he incited an insurrection. He did not incite an insurrection. I'm sorry, an insurrection. Based off of any sort of legal standard for incitement. And the first impeachment was also a joke. It was like obstruction of Congress and abuse of power, And basically, if you go through the impeachment documents, they're upset that he was, they thought going after your political opponent was an abuse of power, and that's really why he got in trouble. He got impeached for being curious about Joe and Hunter and their dealings and Ukraine and corruption. And Biden and Hunter hid stuff. They lied about stuff involving the laptop and so on. And now Joe Biden had the power to pardon his son, and he pardoned him from basically that time with Burisma and Ukraine and so on. And so Biden went out pardoning his son from stuff that Trump was nearly impeached over. Well, he was impeached. He wasn't, kicked out of office, acquitted by the Senate or whatever. It's just all remarkable stuff. But on top of all those different things that Trump went through, there were 2 attempts on his life. And we know that one of them, if he had turned his head at the right second, he would have died. He would have died in front of all those people. Think about how terrible that would have been. Think about how terrible that would have been. And I guess some people didn't think it would have been so terrible. So a lot of people were upset that they missed. Unfortunately, a lot of crazy people online were bold enough to let people know how evil they were, And when that happened, he didn't just go duck and run and cry or something. He got up and he said, fight, fight, fight. And so that sort of instinct, that was something that Elon really admired too, and other men talked about. And like, that's not something that you just can like teach in somebody. It was, instilled like in him to push back in that situation. And then he just has like a sense of the world around him to know that that was an important moment to do something like that. At the time where the Secret Service was trying to push him off, he's like, "Now let me put on my shoe. Like, let me, let me up. We're gonna do this." And it. Of course, he got Person of the Year. Of course, he got Person of the Year, and then on top of that, there were still like iconic moments, like when he went to McDonald's, because people talk about his love of McDonald's. He actually went there, and he loves McDonald's. Kamala Harris claimed to work in McDonald's. I don't think we've really seen evidence of that, and but that was a claim that she made. So Donald Trump actually went to McDonald's, made a campaign thing, and his interaction with people was just so wonderful. Like I showed you guys the clip when he talked to one person. He's like, "Oh, it's so nice that you came out to meet like average people like us or common people like us." And Trump was like, "Oh no, there's nothing like common about you. No way." Just the interaction. He's so good at this compared to other people politicking. Like Kamala Harris is like the worst, and they just, he's a titan. He's a titan at this. He doesn't always say the best things. And he certainly doesn't always say things in the way that I would like him to, or the way that I would say, but he has a way about him where he just connects, and he's really funny. When my sister met him, that was one of the things that really struck her, how funny that he was. So anyway, congrats to Trump. When he went to the New York Stock Exchange where they had announced it, he thanked them for that honor again. And he talked about the Time magazine covers throughout the years. And I think he said maybe like a quarter of them or a third of them that he liked, and the ones he kind of like hid. Because they had him on the cover like all the time. And sometimes they're just illustrations, and they made it seem like the country was just burning down every other week or something under Trump, which just wasn't really the case. But there have been, I guess, some nice covers that he Trump acknowledged, but one of those nice covers would be what they just published. But Trump did go by the New York Stock Exchange, and this is just some of the people showing him love.
What's up, guys? It's 9:48. Should you be making money? Yeah! JD, all our guys build to see you. I mean, this is it. Can't wait for you. What's up, guys? How we doing? Everybody who's our guy, you're our guy. This is it. You are our guy. What's up, guys?
You are our guy. Yeah. People are excited. RC said, "Guess I will buy the magazine." I don't know if I'm going to go that far, but I don't know if I'm going to go quite that far, but not surprised that he took the win there, guys. It's well deserved. Definitely. I mean, people are like man of the year. It's like man of the century. You can say man of the decade, definitely the decade, century. You know, I don't know about century. Decade, sure. I think by the time we get to like considering century, Elon might end up having to take that. Depends how much more technology he comes out with. But I don't know, he might accidentally make Skynet, but I guess that's still not a reason to disqualify him from Time Person of the Year. You know, bad stuff goes on there too. So um there was also some interesting things about the article too. Someone was comparing it to the article that he had on NBC, and they asked him a lot of similar questions about Tulsi Gabbard and Syria and January 6th and the abortion pills and so on. And I'm just like, I'm not saying these aren't real questions, but I don't know. I feel like so many of these news organizations, they just have a narrative that they want to push so much, they just basically lose the pulse of the American people and they don't speak to what's important. But something that is important is prices. And there was a viral tweet that was going around from Sam Stein. Let me show you guys this. Trump tells Time he's not sure he can get the price of groceries down. It's hard to bring things down once they're up, it's very hard. So that's a fact, that once things are up, it's just kind of hard to bring it down. So that's viral. Let me go show you guys this tweet again so you can see. 4.9 million views. It's been retweeted over, almost 5,000 times. It's got a lot of comments, like 2,000 comments. Bookmarked 1.4 thousand times. 16,000 likes. So let me go back to this retweet here. This is actually what the Time magazine says. This is the question. If the prices of groceries don't come down, will your presidency be a failure? I don't think so. Look, they got them up. I like to bring them down. It's hard to bring things down once they're up. It's very hard. But I think that they will. I think that energy is going to bring them down. I think a better supply chain is going to bring them down. The supply chain is still broken. It's broken. You see it. So, then he goes on about the supply chain and stuff, but yeah, that's the answer. I don't, yeah. Let me go back. My sister said, where's the part where he says he's not sure? Because that was a quote. I mean, no, he didn't say they're not sure. It's hard to bring things down once they're up. It's very hard. That is what he said, but he just missed out a lot of other stuff. So some people are saying when Trump was running, he was saying he's going to bring prices down. He's going to bring prices down. And what do you want to say? Like, all politicians speak with hyperbole and stuff, but they try to implement an agenda that's going to result in, the result that's going to result in the thing that they campaigned on, right? And so the question was, if this thing doesn't happen, is your presidency going to be a failure? And he says no. So he's letting there's a possibility that, maybe it's a little it's possible that it could be a little impossible because just when things are up, it's a hard, you're at a very hard starting point. But realistically, there's a lot of obstacles that have made the prices high, And once we start implementing things where we start fixing the supply chain and dealing with energy prices and all those other sorts of things, it's going to lower the costs. So you're saying I think they should come down, you know? So I think prices will come down, but once people know that you can pay a certain thing, sometimes they want to keep you paying that price. However, it's also the case that a lot of stores have started lowering their prices on different stuff because they see competition in it. They see competition in it. Like during Thanksgiving, people had all these kinds of deals for Thanksgiving and turkeys and so on. And these stores, they wanted to make sure that they got your business here, they got your business there. So especially these big box stores where they have some margin to make up in other areas, grocery stores themselves, they have very low margins. It's like 2%. But if it's a big box store, they again, they have a lot of different places where they can make up a margin on products like cables, for example. There's a lot of margin on that stuff. When I worked at a computer store, the computers didn't have a lot of margin on that stuff. People would try to come in and make some kind of like, we can bring the price, you can bring the price down. I know you can. And they're like, no, this is pretty much at cost right now. Like it's at cost, but they wanted us to sell service plans and they wanted us to sell subscriptions to Instant Ink. And they wanted us to sell different cables and stuff. If I bought a cable at the store that I worked at, very, very cheap compared to if I go to the gas station and pay for it right now without being an employee and get an employee discount on that stuff where I can get products at cost. I hate buying cables because I know what they actually cost. I hate it. 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 Anyway, let's move on to this Pete Hegseth story. Again, I know we talked about this yesterday, but there's an interesting update with this Pete story. So yesterday I mentioned that Pete Hegseth, who's up for a nomination from Trump, and folks don't like it. Well, on the left don't like it anyway. And there's been a lot of accusations, allegations thrown at Pete from a lot of unspecified sources and all kinds of different stuff. There was a police report from a woman who claimed that he had sexually assaulted her, when in reality, when you look through the report, it just kind of looks like she might have been embarrassed that she slept with Pete at a hotel where her husband and her kids were at. So that was just really shady. There's all kinds of stories. They're trying to Kavanaugh him. They're trying to Me Too him. They're really Kavanaugh him because they're also talking about his alcohol consumption, knowing that these people who are probably accusing him were probably drug problems, because this is just DC. They like their liquor. They definitely like their liquor. But yesterday I talked about how ProPublica, it's like a left-wing publication site and stuff, they were going to post an article about Pete and him not actually going to West Point, or well, he didn't go to West Point, but he said he got into West Point. So they had decided to run a story on that. And when they contacted West Point claimed, like, there's two sources that claim that no, he never got accepted, he never applied. And so Hegseth had to post or send to them his actual acceptance letter. And it is so good. It's such a good thing that they kept that acceptance letter all this time. Hold on to important documents, people, because you never know when you're going to have to debunk some kind of crazy hit piece on yourself, I guess. So it would have been wild if he didn't have that. Just so absolutely wild. So after they provided that, I guess they dropped the story, but Pete still said, hey, there's this story that they're trying to come out with. It's a hit piece. Here's my stuff. And so ProPublica was like, no, that's not true. Like, we're just doing our due diligence. We heard something and we checked it out and it wasn't true. So we didn't write a story. That's how journalism works. That's how journalism works. Yeah. Journalism. But Daily Caller actually obtained some of the emails, And they tell a different story because they try to make it seem like it wasn't like a hit piece. It was just like honest reporting. And then they didn't proceed because, you know, the facts weren't on their side. But we read through a thread yesterday where they tried to explain what the events, but what they left out was that ProPublica reached out to Hegseth's lawyers and stuff, and they gave them an hour to respond. They gave them an hour to respond. So I'm going to read through this, and then I'm going to go ahead and go through an article that the Daily Caller has that sums up some more details. But this is really low of them. And I talked a little bit about journalists and some yesterday, and just some games that they play. And there have been games that they played, you know, just in my situation, like when my sister ran for chair, or my sister working for the Trump campaign. When they want to write a hit, they want to write a hit, man. You know? So the email says, "This is Justin Elliott from ProPublica. I'm reaching out with an urgent request for comment for your client, Pete Hegseth. We're moving quickly, so please let me know if you or he would like to comment as soon as possible. Our deadline is in 1 hour. Our deadline is in 1 hour, guys." I can be reached at, and let's blot it out, my colleague Robert Fenterici, CC'd. He can be reached at. We're preparing a story about Mr. Hegseth's claims that he was admitted to West Point. The school told us that this is not true. According to a spokesperson for the school, Mr. Hegseth did not even apply. Mr. Hegseth said on Jason Chavitz's podcast in June, "I got into West Point." Then later he repeated the claim. "I mentioned West Point. I got into Princeton also, and I went to visit those two schools and ultimately decided on Princeton." He repeated the claim in September and again in October. Why did Mr. Hegseth say he got into West Point when that is not true? So he just flat out assumes that it's a lie. How can Mr. Hegseth be Secretary of Defense given that he has made false statements about getting into the military's most prestigious academy? Is there anything else we should know? Thank you. Best, Justin. Now, given the hostility and the accusations and the accusatory tone in that email, do you think this was just journalism?
How can you be Secretary of Defense, given that you lied? They said this happened. Why did you lie?
Now, it's pretty bad that West Point gave them false information. And so you can understand the confusion and perhaps rather even a little bit of the boldness, but it certainly wasn't professional. It certainly wasn't professional. And in the email from the thread that we went over yesterday, they're like, "Oh, they responded. They were pretty nasty or hostile, or let me see if I can find the thread a little bit from yesterday." Because it was this was Pete's tweet from yesterday. "We understand that ProPublica, the left-wing hack group, is planning to publish a knowingly false report that I was not accepted to West Point in 1999. Here's my letter of acceptance signed by West Point Superintendent Lieutenant General Daniel Christman, U.S. Army." So I'm glad he blasted these people. And why would y'all come out and pretend like y'all were just doing journalism, knowing that there's an email, like a hostile email from your employees coming for them? Like, why would you do that? Somebody's got to explain it to me. So Jesse Eisinger, who's a ProPublica editor, um, I know we talked about this yesterday, but we'll just here's a story about how journalism works. Now, we didn't know all the background. We knew some details, and we still suspected they were jerks before. But now we know what the emails were. And knowing what the email was, how could you say, here's a story about how journalism works? And you know what? Sadly, it is a story about how journalism works. It's not how journalism should work, though. You know, how they send out stuff with a 1 hour deadline. Maybe they're hoping to catch somebody at lunch and they don't respond in time. And then they can do their hit piece and write in there, oh, they did not respond to a request for comment. Knowing that they waited, during lunchtime to send in something that said, oh, our deadline is in an hour. And they're like, this is how we decided not to publish. So they did contact West Point. And they said that he never opened a file. So then they're like, ooh, we got a juicy story, which you decided to post this story and then was trying to gather the evidence for your, to go after him. So okay, here we go. One of the reporters called Hegseth's lawyer. The attorney made a lot of angry legal threats to him, but didn't deny the facts. We urged him to contact his client to make sure Hegseth understood what we were planning. So they were telling the story and was making it seem like Hegseth was the hostile one and his people were hostile, knowing good and well that they had that email that was pretty hostile toward them. Pretty darn hostile toward them. So I'm going to go ahead and go through this Daily Caller article. I'll try not to go over stuff that we already talked about, already know, but there were some interesting details in here that I wanted to just share. And good on them for getting this information. But these people are just scum. This is how the story imploded. So they claim that he kind of got a fair chance to respond, and 1 hour is not. So Daily Caller is the ones who got the emails from ProPublica to the Hegseth team. And Justin Elliott, a reporter for ProPublica, reached out to Hegseth's lawyer, Timothy Parletror, on Tuesday about the story. Elliott told Parletror he had an urgent request for a comment and gave him just 1 hour to respond. An email obtained by the caller shows. We read through that email, so we know what was in it. Elliott, he says, "Why were you lying? Is there anything else we should know?" It's so, such a lecture from these people. Elliott's assertion that Hegseth lied appears to have been based on a single email and phone call with the West Point spokespeople. Eisinger tweeted that one West Point spokesman told them over email that Hegseth hadn't even applied to the school, citing the admissions office. ProPublica then called West Point, and then the second spokesperson confirmed the falsehood, saying absolutely 100%. The Daily Caller reached out to ProPublica to ask them a series of questions, including whether or not they would require more evidence than just two statements to accuse a cabinet secretary nominee of lying, and if they did any additional work to verify the story before accusing Hegseth of lying. I think that's a very important question. That's a very important question. What's your standard of proof? And did you do your due diligence before resorting to, oh, this man is absolutely lying? Why are you lying? The caller reached out to ProPublica nearly 6 hours before publication. Now, this is funny, mentioning how much time that they gave them. They didn't give them 1 hour. It would have been kind of funny. They're like, we gave them exactly 1 hour to respond. But no, they gave them 6 hours to respond, because that would actually be more courteous. And they said reporters do their job by asking tough questions to people in power, which is exactly what happened here. Responsible news organizations only publish what they can verify, which is why we didn't publish a story once. Mr. Hegseth provided documentation that corrected the statement from West Point, a ProPublica spokesperson told the caller. The caller followed up to ask if ProPublica did any additional work to verify the story beyond taking two Army public information officers at face value. The spokesperson said the first statement speaks for itself. So they're not going to go deeper into whether or not they did more to verify their story before they planned to just try to destroy Pete Hegseth. They said they had no further comment. The caller also reached out to Elliott directly, but the email bounced back stating he was out of office. After sending the email, Elliott called Parlator and asked him about the story. According to the transcript of the call provided to the Daily Caller, the transcript shows that the reporter repeated that he was on an hour deadline and was looking for a comment from him or Hegseth. Once Elliott explained who he was, Parlator continued to ask the reporter how he obtained the information, alleging that the school could potentially be breaking federal privacy laws, according to the transcript. While Eisinger claimed on Twitter that Parlator didn't deny the facts during his phone call, the transcript obtained by the caller indicates otherwise. In the transcript, Parlator says West Point was providing ProPublica false information, and Elliott replies that he would use that denial on the record. Hegseth's team eventually provided ProPublica with his acceptance letter, which the outlet then took to West Point. At that point, West Point Public Affairs Office apologized and admitted that per a new records check, Hegseth had applied and had been accepted to the school. Again, if he didn't have these records, they probably would have ran that story because, again, they said they have 1 hour is their deadline. If 1 hour is their deadline, the story is already written. They've already written up everything they're going to say. It was probably going to be a scathing rebuke of Hegseth and saying that he lied and was, about his record and so on, and to try to put out that narrative that because of this lie, he doesn't deserve to have the position that he's been nominated for. And they were just getting that little statement to be like, well, we're fair. Maybe it would have been buried. Maybe, they would have played off of it or whatever, but just to give him that chance to respond. But they absolutely had the story written, absolutely, or mostly written or whatever. You don't, if you got an hour deadline, you're not waiting to write the story within an hour. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. So it is so good that his lawyer responded. And it is so good that he actually kept the article. I mean, the acceptance letter from 99. From 99. My gosh. It is so good that he kept an acceptance letter from a school he decided not to go to that was 25 years old. The Daily Caller reached out to West Point to ask how the false information was relayed, if there was any further communication between the school and ProPublica, and if officials who shared the false information were being disciplined. They did not answer the questions and refused to accept a phone call to discuss the story further. Hegseth has been the target of a number of negative media stories, once he was picked to lead the Pentagon, et cetera, and so that's like the end of the article. Wild, huh? Wild. Now, ProPublica is a left-wing group. And I would Pete Hegseth said it was like a left-wing hack group. I think that's really accurate. ProPublica, for example, in this last election has put out quite a bit of misinformation regarding pro-choice stories, trying to really, really scare people with different stories regarding women and their pregnancies and miscarriages and deaths and so on, in order to be able to get rid of pro-life laws and to elevate the pro-choice narrative that women are just dying everywhere because of Trump's and so on. So secular pro-life has been great at debunking a lot of their stories as of late, but it's really messed up. This Pete Hegseth stuff. And then to come out and be like, where this is a story about how real journalism works. That maybe you're right, but that's an indictment on journalism and journalists today. That's an indictment on your profession. It's not a good thing. That's how they operate, and unfortunately, it's how a lot of them operate with the scare tactics and the 1 hour deadlines with stuff that's already been written. Sometimes they want comment earlier. So it's messed up. I could go on with different personal stories regarding media, but I'm going to go ahead and let that be the end of it for today. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Anna said, Anna, I'm commenting about other comments. Anna is saying, are there other people? Anna, you're like the only one on Facebook who's commenting. I'm sorry that all the action is on YouTube today. So just a reminder, I'm the program that I'm using. I can see people's comments across different platforms. So I'm streaming on Twitch, I'm streaming on YouTube, I'm streaming on Facebook, and so I can see all the comments from all the platforms. But I know you guys can't see each other if you're on different platforms. I'm cutting out. So yeah, we got to get some more people in the Facebook chat so Anna doesn't feel alone. Where are you guys? Where you at? Anyway, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation.